Hello, this is Jay Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts in the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have violent MAGA enthusiast gets into physical altercation with poll workers, and that's from Ragnar OKXD, and that's crosswords from the Public Freakout subreddit. And yeah, this is just more DNC propaganda, really. Democrats can misbehave as well, but they'll never share that on a subreddit like this because it's mostly just kind of a orange man bad circle jerk. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Clint Russell Hart's YouTube comment, racist jokes are funny, I do not care. And yeah, I do think that, if you want to like racist jokes, then you should be able to. I don't think the libertarians should be policing what others do and don't like. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Philadelphia didn't violate rights of cops fired over offensive Facebook posts. Court rules from apnews.com by Baton 13. And I personally don't think you should be fired based on what you post on social media. But that being said, if it were up to me, we wouldn't have a government security force in the police in the first place anyway. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Women Are People from Donald Key, and that's crosswords from the Facepalm subreddit. It's a tweet from Ron Filipkowski. Charlie Kirk is upset that Republican women may undermine their husbands and secretly vote for Harris while telling their husbands they vote for Trump, even if the husband works his tail off to make sure that she can have a nice life. And yeah, openly I think people should be able to vote for whoever they want to. But with that being said, if you don't like who your partner voted for, sometimes you just suck it up and take it. I personally think, if you want to vote for the same candidate, you should be able to. If you vote for different candidates, you should be able to. But, vote for whoever you want to as individuals, not as a collective, I would say. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, how do people think he's going to fix anything if he cannot even pay his own bills? From Ragnar OKXD, and that's crosswords from the Leopards Ate My Faith subreddit. It's a tweet from the Feminist Wild Twitter account who tweeted, Trump has outspent any balances from previously held events in every state he has visited. Today he was denied holding his hate rally in Albuquerque, New Mexico due to owing the city $445,000 from events he never paid for. In desperation, he held his rally at a private hangar outside Albuquerque. This is the guy that's going to fix everything according to his cult. And yeah, that's I think a lot of people feel when you're like someone like Donald Trump, you feel like you're entitled to everything for free, but that's not how things work. And yeah, ultimately, I'm glad he could find a backup venue that was willing to accept him. But with that being said, it just goes to show you that the Republicans, much like the Democrats, are fiscally irresponsible these days, despite how they may market themselves. Then we have a pregnant teenager died after trying to get care and free visits to Texas emergency room. Original title from ProPublica.org by Dr. Who 07. And yeah, this is just kind of, I'm personally more on the pro-choice side, but this is just kind of, DNC propaganda about being pro-abortion because, she died before Roe was overturned. I think this was in 2021. And it just goes to show you how, sometimes doctors might be able to do what they want to. And, because of the law. And yeah, that's why I personally don't think, we should have any rules on abortion, because I personally find it to be immoral. But with that being said, I think, if you want to do it, it's your body and it should be your choice. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have To Never Again from Ragnar OKXD, and that's crosswords from the There Was an Attempt subreddit, and it's an article. Israel brands Palestinian detainees in West Bank with numbers on their foreheads. Troops humiliate Palestinians swept up in West Bank raid by referring to them only by their numbers instead of by name. And yeah, that just goes to show you how people can be jerks to one another when one's in the in-group and one's in the out-group. I'm sure if it was the other way around and the Palestinians were browning the Israelis' head, it wouldn't show up in Reddit, it would show up maybe on like Fox News. But with that being said, it just depends. It just is about who's in the in group, who's in the out group, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have news website possibly operated by local Republican Party from Patch.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, ultimately, I don't really care for partisan news outlets. But that being said, you have to account for stuff like that about like CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS. They're all pretty much at this point operated by the DNC, and that's important to remember as well. Ultimately, every news source is going to try and sell you something, and that's why they are increasingly partisan as the years go on, I think. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have judge rules naturalized Ohioan citizenship can be challenged at polls. Papers, please. Free bring Nazism. They had parentheses from Dayton Daily News by CH4 Locks. And yeah, I personally think if they want to challenge anyone's right to vote, I think they should be able to. But with that being said, I think it's all just for show. I don't think voting is really going to change anything. You'll either get Harris and the deep state bureaucrats running the country under her, or Trump and the deep state bureaucrats running the country under him. I don't think it really matters in the long run. Then we have the Green Party's VP candidate has swung my vote to Chase Oliver from Andrew Quaxon, and they said, I wasn't expecting a more progressive option to come out as anti-choice and anti-trans week before the election, but here we are. This will be my first election voting age and my first election voting Libertarian. The fact that all the Mises MAGA-oriented Libertarians seem to dislike the guy makes me a bigger fan. It's a shame he'll probably end up with less support than Johnson and Jorgensen. And yeah, if he wants to vote Libertarian, I think he should be able to. If he wants to vote Green, I think he should be able to vote for whoever you want to. And yeah, but essentially any dissent at all is labeled as anti-choice or anti-trans these days, and I think that's important to remember as well. Then we have Hillary Clinton ordered the hit on Peanut from FunKale321. That's the AI image of Hillary Clinton holding a picture of Peanut Squirrel who just got killed by the feds. And it reminds me a lot of how they assassinated Harambe as well. They can justify, the feds, since they have this monopoly of force on their side, they can justify doing whatever they want, and that includes to animals as well as people. And that's why, it's why you should have every right to resist them if they ever do come knocking at your door, I would say. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have who else is voting third party and has this experience, and it's a guy on the left and a guy on the right, and they say, I hate the two-party system, and one other guy says, I'm going to vote for a third party, and then the other guy says, can't you see this is you're destroying democracy? The election is the most important ever. We need these votes. You are dividing the vote, and you need to follow the two-party system. And yeah, that just goes to show you how, people say, oh, I'm a free thinker, but, when the narrative comes knocking, they'll just say whatever their party wants them to. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have listened to the Jeffrey Epstein tapes. I was Donald Trump's closest friend from the DailyBeast.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, I personally don't really care for that. But I think they were all with Epstein. They don't, when Bill Clinton's with Epstein, they don't care, but when Donald Trump's with Epstein, they care, it's the vice versa for people on the other side of the spectrum, it doesn't really matter, I would say. They were all in bed with Epstein, and they probably already have a new Epstein that we'll find out about in due time as well. Then we have economic freedom is not merely abstract, it's about real people enduring the consequences of real choices made by government officials from Lemon Limelight, and they said, excerpts from a column by Veronique Durugi, where nations are the freest and why should we care, written to cover the Fraser Institute's 2014 Economic Freedom of the World Index. And they shared some paragraphs from it. Economic freedom isn't just some wonky concept to be an academic calls. It's about whether a government protects property rights or seizes assets at will. Whether regulations are sensible or suffocating, whether you can trade freely or face a maze of obstructions, whether your money holds its value or your purchasing power gets eroded by government mismanagement, and whether you can count on the courts to enforce contracts fairly. The freest economies enjoy an average GDP per capita about 7.6 times greater than that of the 25% least economically free places. They have cleaner environments, better health outcomes, and longer life expectancies by a lot. Even the poor citizens of free countries fare better than middle classes in economically repressive nations. And they have a few more paragraphs, and they add at the end, how important is economic freedom to you? Should it get credit for the prosperity of the rich, clean, and healthy nations? The column citing the index also says, we're now witnessing a global retreat from economic freedom. Do you agree? And I would agree with that. Nowadays both parties are against economic freedom. The Republican Party may market itself as being for economic freedom, but they've been increasingly going away from it. And the Democrats, they were never really for economic freedom in the first place. And increasingly, when I think that economic freedom is something that's going to be taken away, just like the zeitgeist of the two major parties is increasingly anti-freedom on all the fronts, not just economic freedom. Increasingly both major parties are turning against concepts like free speech and the right to do what you want to if it goes against their narratives. And that's why, I think we should stand up for liberty rather than what the two major parties are pushing. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have FCC Commissioner claims Harris on SNL violates equal time rule from thehill.com by Swanpanky Dan. That's a crossword from the r/law subreddit. And ultimately, I think I don't really care for the FCC. I think they're just another alphabet agency. And I think if Harris wants to go on SNL, I think she should be able to go on SNL. I think people should be able to justify doing whatever they want. I don't really care for SNL. I think it's just DNC propaganda. But, I think if she wants to go on there and jerk herself off, I think she should be able to. I would say the same thing if it was the other way and it was Trump going on SNL, not Harris. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have an Idaho health department isn't allowed to give COVID-19 vaccines anymore. Experts say it's a first from abcnews.com by Swanpanky Dan. And ultimately, I think if people want to take the COVID-19 vaccine, they should be able to. But if the government doesn't want to provide it for them, I don't think they should be forced to either. I think if the taxpayers want to fund the government providing the COVID-19 vaccine, they should be able to. But if they don't want to, then they shouldn't be forced to do so. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have annoyed I have to write and Chase Oliver on my ballot by Baton 13. They said, I can't find details as to why my state is one of the free and which he's not certified. Does anyone have any information as why he isn't certified in those states? I think this guy's from New York, and increasingly, New York made its ballot laws very pretty much infinite signatures, so you have to be a major party to get on, and that's why it's increasingly they just want to make it harder and harder for third parties to get on the ballot, and I don't think that's very democratic of them. The Democrats go save our democracy, but they sue up third parties off the ballot and make it harder for them to get on because New York's very much a Democratic state, and that's why you can't trust those guys. I would say they're a bunch of phonies. The Republicans are a bunch of phonies as well, I would say, but increasingly the Democrats, I would say, are a much bigger bunch of phonies because the mainstream narrative is much more from the Democrats than it is from the Republicans. And then finally, we have Intel might be too big to fail. Washington policymakers are already discussing potential solutions if the chip maker cannot recover from Ninja Lover. That's from tomshardware.com. And I don't think a company should be too big to fail. I like a lot of what Intel does. With that being said, if they go bankrupt, I don't think the government should bail them out. Just like I don't think it should bail any other company out. And that's my thoughts on that issue. So we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.